Hey everybody, Metal Jesus here, and today I have a really fun video for you. I am racing across town right now to meet up with a local game collector who has a storage unit full of really cool, rare, uncommon, very interesting video game stuff. Many of it I have never shown on my channel before. I think you're gonna love this video. Now, the story of how I met this guy is pretty interesting. You might remember, probably about a month ago, I did a video where I was reviewing the latest Terra Onion add-on for the PC Engine. Well, the problem is I don't have a PC Engine, and so I reached out to some people that I know. They didn't have one, so I jumped on a local Facebook group where a lot of collectors are, and a guy responded. He's like, yeah, I happen to have one, and oh, by the way, he told me that I had featured his booth at that Antique Pavilion video that I did back in 2020. I was like, well, small world, right? He's like, you know what? I got way more stuff where that came from. Would you like to come check out my storage locker? And I am so glad I did.
My name is Jesse, and I'm a seller at the local antique mall. And this is what I use to fill up that antique mall with stuff.
Now, if you think back to that video I did on the antique mall, one of the things I commented on was how unusual it was to see some of these imports and kind of rare games in an antique mall. Well, the reason for that is because Jesse's day job is to travel to Japan. And so he, up to the beginning of the pandemic, would do that a lot and basically buy stuff there to bring back to the Seattle area to stock his antique booth.
The reason why I have all this stuff in a storage locker is because A, it won't fit in my house. And B, I probably have a little bit of an addiction to buying, right? As I say, my eyes are bigger than my wallet sometimes. So this is where I have to store the overstock that I have, that I use to stock my space up at the antique mall.
And so the crazy thing is that Jesse just kind of let me go crazy in here. He just let me loose in his storage locker to kind of dig through it and kind of discover on my own all the stuff he has in here. Oh man, I mean, to say I was like a kid in a candy store, that is an understatement. And as you can see here, one of the first things I found, again, is something that you rarely see, is a bunch of Famicom discs. If you're not familiar with this, so essentially in Japan, there was a floppy disk add-on that you could add to the Famicom. And a lot of games came out on floppy disk. And it's something, again, that you just typically don't see, but yet he had hundreds of them in a couple of these storage bins. It was wild. You see a box of the Famicom disk systems here. Now, one of the things that he told me, though, is that his goal is to repair everything here. That everything that you see, for the most part, has been repaired by him and in perfect working order to sell to, local collectors. Now, these particular ones aren't in great shape. They could probably use some cleaning up, but that's why that they're in the storage locker and not actually at his booth. In this bin here, you see that he's got a couple CD-ROM 2 drives for the PC Engine, as well as a little deeper in there, you see something that you don't see very often that I know a lot of people are looking for, the PC Engine Turbo Duo. Now, these have actually been both recapped, and then you'll notice that one of them had a little sticker there that says that he also replaced the laser. So the laser was defective, and he got that one working as well. So yeah, this is something I typically do not see. I mean, it's very unusual to see these. Here's some more PC Engine stuff. Again, when he reached out to me, he said, oh yeah, I've got a couple of those, you can borrow them for the video. I was like, what? Okay. Yeah, he's not kidding around. He's got a bunch of them here. Here are some colored N64s that he picked up, and in many cases, he actually has the matching controller with it as well. Now, he told me that a lot of these he picked up at Japanese flea markets and, in different states of working or not, but again, he'd get a good deal on it with the idea of bringing them back to the Seattle area, repairing them so that he could sell them locally. I love the fact that you can see here that it still has the original bag and price on there that he paid at a flea market, 300 yen, or about $3. So even broken, that's probably a good deal. But he says that actually, all of those, if they're not repaired, they will be. They'll be working perfectly. Here's something that I don't think I've seen outside of retro gaming expos. I don't think I know anybody who has one of these, and you see a bunch of them here, including different colored ones. This is the Sharp Twin Famicom. This is a version of the Famicom that has the floppy disk built into it. I think this is one of the coolest retro gaming consoles ever. It's so cool looking. Man, that is really neat to see. In addition to console games and console systems, he also has a bunch of Japanese computer stuff. You see some MSX floppy games here. And I love these because look how sturdy the boxes are, right? I love the plastic clamshell. I love the trays that they sit in. It's just an extra layer of protection that, for the most part, I don't think you really saw this over in the West. He's got some really interesting stuff in here, including Snatcher on the MSX. Again, something you typically just do not see every day. So it's cool to see, a really nice looking manual in there, as well as the floppy version. And it also has like this sound, looks like a sound cartridge or something like that. I thought that was really interesting. So that must enhance the sound in some way. I've mentioned this before, but the Sega Saturn, while it didn't do very well in North America, it did extremely well over in Japan. And because of that, well, there are just a ton of great Sega Saturn games that you can get as imports. And you see a box of them here. Again, these will eventually be put out in his antique booth here in the antique mall, which again just makes me laugh that someone could potentially walk into that antique mall and just see a bunch of rare and uncommon Sega Saturn games in there. That's just awesome and hilarious at the same time. He was showing me some more computer floppy games, and I noticed that they all said good or maybe missing the manual or things like that. And I was impressed to learn that he actually tests and confirms every single one of these games if it works. That is not something you typically see when you're looking at games on eBay. Often they are just sold as is when it comes to floppy disk, because it's really hard to get a floppy disk and test all that stuff. And so, man, that is, again, next level stuff. I thought that was really cool he does that. It's not something you see every day. Here are some PlayStation 1s, but what's cool again is that he loves to tinker with them, and he'll install the MM3 mod chip on there so that when you buy one of these, then you can just easily play import games. Another random box here, he opens it up, and yeah, you can see he's got a bunch of Game & Watches complete in the box. These have become very collectible in the last 5 years or so, and he's just got a bunch of them sitting here. I was like, oh my gosh, again, something that you may never see outside of like a retro gaming convention for sure. That was pretty awesome. He's also got a bunch of NES top loaders here, as well as matching dog bone controllers. They probably just need to be cleaned up a little bit. They've been in there for a while, as well as, check it out, pretty much almost new in-box Game Boy Advances. He was kind of curious though. He's like, he's kind of on the fence. He's like, should he put those out there with, say, the screen mods or just stock? Some people maybe want one or the other. Now, I had to ask him, what is up with the wall of Wii's?
So it's it's a sad story for me. I was buying via Yahoo Auctions, and the auction was sort of titled, hey, we have a bunch of handhelds, we have a bunch of Wii's and Nintendo 64s and Super Famicoms and all these things. And so I bought the auctions. Thankfully, I didn't spend a lot of money on the auctions. But what I found out as boxes and boxes and boxes started showing up at my doorstep was that 95% of it was Japanese Wii consoles. So you can see what I have here. There's actually a stack of boxes in the very far corner there. That's still more Wii's I haven't unpacked because I ran out of shelf room. So, it's embarrassing. I got taken for a ride. It is what it is, and here they sit.
Here's looking at part of his NEOGEO stash here, and as you can see, he's got a bunch of the consoles. Now, some of these are in various states of repair. Some of these actually need to have the boards replaced or cleaned up. He also likes to do some AV mods to it. So you'll see on this one here, for instance, it has S-Video out. So he has a bunch of options for people who either want to get it sort of stock or perhaps cleaned up and also, you know, with a better audio video output, as well as a handful of games here. Now, you know, NEOGEO is notoriously difficult to collect for and expensive, so he doesn't have an insane collection here, but it's decent. And kind of what he does is he keeps these around to bundle them with the system. So if you end up buying a NEOGEO from him, he typically likes to also include in there a starter game for people. And that's kind of what these are for here. And here's something I almost never see. Maybe you'll see one or two games, but nothing quite like this. This is the NEOGEO CD. This is a bunch of games that he has just kind of, again, ready to go out on the floor. This is only about half of what he has. To give you an idea, that game right there, that racing game, Overtop, that alone online will typically be listed for $800 to $1,000 just for that one game. It's a very niche market, I will say. You know, not a lot of people have a NEOGEO CD, but if you have one, man, this is like a gold mine here. I have one personally myself, but again, I've probably got, I think maybe 5 games for it total, and they're all really common. I don't even know if I've seen this many before. It's kind of insane. It's pretty awesome. Speaking of NEOGEO CD, if you're looking for one, well, he's got a couple for you here. So yeah, he can hook you up, as well as some fight sticks. Again, I don't think I've ever seen quite so many of them jammed into a cardboard box before. That is pretty awesome to see. It's funny because we were talking about the NEOGEO controllers, and I mentioned how I absolutely love how they have clicky thumbsticks. But for him, as a repairer and someone who tries to get these working for people, he's not a huge fan of it, only because they tend to gum up. I hadn't heard that before, but he's like, yeah, it's fairly common for them to need to be like thoroughly cleaned and repaired. So it's good that he does that. Here's a box with some North American releases in there. This is kind of just random PlayStation games. You have PS2, PSP, PS3, these JoJo's Bizarre Adventure games here. Man, those have definitely become collectible, probably because the anime is so dang awesome. But yeah, just random stuff here. You know, obviously Einhander is one that a lot of people are looking for, but then there's also some extremely common stuff too. By the way, he did want to mention that the prices that you see on here may or may not reflect reality, because that's what it was at the time when he put them into the box. He does say, though, that he actually tries to undercut eBay a little bit, to make it a little bit easier for people to get these locally. So the price that you see here may or may not be what you actually pay when you get to the store, but just keep that in mind. Now, I appreciate that he sells all this locally, but I was also kind of curious. I mean, why not also sell, on, like, say, eBay?
The first thing I want to say is eBay has kind of become a very difficult place to sell. As a seller, you may run into people that are pulling scams. I at one point, I had to start putting security stickers over the edges so I would know if someone took it apart and tried to swap parts out. Shipping can be a nightmare, right? You don't know who's on the other end. And so, selling locally, there is a factor of ease for it, right? I don't have to pack and ship stuff. But it's also nice to see these kinds of things show up locally and give the people that are local here an opportunity to buy things. And, my philosophy is always sell something that delivers a good experience. And so I like being able to deliver that good experience to a local community.
This box here had some stuff that I know that my buddy Reggie would love, because he loves collecting these boxed Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. And he's got some heavy hitters in here, some stuff you don't typically see very often. So, and yeah, this is pretty cool to see. I mentioned that all of the import stuff he gets in person when he travels to Japan for work, but as you see here, there's a bunch of North American games. And so typically where he gets a lot of this stuff is kind of where I get a lot of my stuff, and that is going to garage sales and pawn shops and things like that, thrift stores. That's where a lot of this stuff has come over the last couple decades that he's been doing this. It's crazy to me how collectible and expensive Pokemon games have become, and getting them complete in the box is becoming a bit of a unicorn. And so it's cool to see that he has, some Game Boy Color Pokemons in here, Game Boy Advances as well. Here's something I don't see every day. It's a bunch of PVMs just sitting on the floor.
I bought a bunch in Japan and shipped them home. And so I use one at home regularly. And again, they're just things that I want to be able to put up and sell. Quite frankly, those are in fine shape. I just haven't moved them up to the mall. You can also see I have some Commodore monitors, which are great for pairing with a Commodore 64. I've got some smaller PVMs, the 9-inch down here, which personally I love. I like because it puts more space on the bench. But I do have a bit of a collection of CRTs, and again, it's just being able to get those things up there and sell them to folks.
I loved seeing these two tower PCs. So both of these are 486s. They're running MS-DOS and maybe Windows 98, he said. I forget. But basically what he uses these for, again, is for testing games. So when a big box PC game comes in, he's got one that has a 5 1/4 floppy. The other one has a 3.5 inch. It's got the proper sound cards in there so that he can make sure that they all work fine. Check this out. This is a original 3DFX Voodoo card in shrink wrap. It's unopened. I was like, what the heck? He got this out in the estate sale. Basically, a guy, for whatever reason, bought it and never ended up opening it and putting it into his computer. And so he had it sitting there for all these years and he picked it up. So I thought this was awesome to see, man. That's pretty cool. He's also got a bunch of Sound Blasters in their original boxes. And man, Sound Blaster put out so many versions of this. It seemed like every 2 years you would get another edition of the Sound Blaster, slightly better than the last one. And he's got a couple of them here in the box. This is not everything that he has, actually. He's got some stuff at his booth as well. But yeah, this is pretty cool to see this PC accessories. All right, guys, well, that is a quick little tour of this amazing storage locker packed full of video game history. I absolutely love stuff like this. If you can't tell, I have a huge smile on my face just watching all of this. It was an amazing day. I, again, love the fact that we have these type of game collectors in the Seattle area selling to local game collectors like me and my friends. It's awesome, the community that we have here. And one of the joys of my YouTube channel is highlighting some of this stuff and helping support that.
If you want to find out more about me and what I have for sale at the Antique Mall, the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram at Ednauseum, EDNAUSEUM, and that's where I generally post new updates when I'm taking stuff up to the mall, when I revamp something. Anytime that there's activity at the mall, I like to give people a heads up that there's new stuff there.
And so if you're a game collector in the Seattle area, well, you're going to want to follow his Instagram account because he's always adding new stuff to his booth, and he's also taking requests. So I let him know that people are going to see this video and want to reach out to him and potentially get stuff, and he is totally cool with that. And again, guys, if you are driving around in the Seattle area and you happen to be near the Aurora Antique Mall, well, you might want to stop in because you never know what you're going to find.
This isn't like what I do for a living. I do have a normal job that, like everybody else, like 9 to 5. But this is just what I like to do with my spare time. I guess it's a lot of fun.
And a big thank you to Jesse for letting me come over to his storage locker, interview him, and just dig through his stuff like a little kid. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.